It is one of the most celebrated and famous battles, not just in anime, not just in manga, but in all of Japanese media. Goku versus Frieza. It may be the most popular fight in the franchise and one that made many new fans. Yes, I know it's not perfect. It has many flaws, especially with the DBZ anime version dragging on for what felt like an eternity. But beneath all of that lies a confrontation that has so much more depth than people give it credit for. On this edition of Dragon Ball in Depth, we look at Frieza versus Goku with a microscope and unearth details that you may have missed, intricacies that you may have forgotten about, and aspects that you may not fully have appreciated. And by the end of this, I hope you gain a greater appreciation for this climactic battle upon the fallen planet. Frieza's backstory with Son Goku has been well documented, but is it really appreciated and understood? Obviously, the story of Frieza and Goku's father Bardock was mostly told in the Bardock TV special, which occurred the exact same day that baby Kakarot was sent to Earth to eventually take it over. Frieza, wanting to wipe out the entire race due to a fear of them growing in power and creating a form of insurrection, destroyed everybody, but left a few alive. Those who he left alive either escaped his clutches or wound up working for him, and one of the ones that escaped his clutches wound up becoming the main character for the entire Dragon Ball franchise. And prior to the introduction of Frieza, or even the Dragon Ball Z portion of the story, we really had no idea that Goku was an alien until that huge revelation happened at the hands of Raditz, Goku's brother who happened to be working for Frieza for a number of years. The Bardock special, however, when it originally ran in Japan, aired in the middle of the Namek arc, right as they were preparing to fight the Ginyu Force. And so because of that, we really didn't have details on the events of what happened until that occurred. The first actual mention of Frieza, and thus the first tease for this fight, would happen at the very end of the fight with Vegeta in the manga, with ominous words from Kaio-sama. As we began the Namek/Frieza saga, it was all build-up. For the first 2/3 of the Namek and Frieza arc, Frieza was kept out of battles and only built up through dialogue. Fear and intimidation did most of the fighting as Gohan and the other good guys dealt with Frieza's minions, structured somewhat like a video game, with side characters facing off against other side characters before the two big titans would clash, with escalating powers as they went along. It became a dangerous game of cat and mouse for the Dragon Balls while Frieza's clutches got closer and closer to attaining immortality, which was the whole purpose as to why he would go to Namek to begin with, whereas the purpose of our heroes was to resurrect their fallen allies. Much more noble and less selfish, I would say. Frieza's first actual fight was with Nail, whom he embarrassed. Meanwhile, as this is happening, Goku is facing off against Frieza's top squadron, the Ginyu Special Forces, leading to a fight with Captain Ginyu, his second in command. Goku overpowered Ginyu and put him up against the wall so far, forcing him to resort to using the body change technique because he couldn't fight blow for blow with him. But let's go back for a second. On his way to planet Namek and after almost dying at the hands of Vegeta, Goku trained rigorously under high amounts of gravity, pushing his body harder than he'd ever felt before. Goku broke his body and rebuilt it with absolute fitness to make himself into a monster, and because of this, his body could withstand the Kaioken technique at multipliers much higher than 4 times. Goku had been warned by everybody, including the Lord of Lords himself, Kaio-sama, to avoid Frieza because of how terrifying Frieza's power was. And that may have been enough to motivate Goku to try even harder because Goku always wants to test himself against the best. They say that it's best to always show rather than tell when it comes to fiction, but Toriyama did both, slowly building Goku and Frieza up simultaneously, one through the use of exposition and one by showing us the growth, and we saw even more of this training in the anime adaptation. You have to remember that in Japan, Dragon Ball Z when it aired was a weekly show, and because of that, fans had to wait months, if not even a year, at least for those who were not reading the manga. The manga obviously was paced at a much faster pace, but it still took a while. But the reward for waiting was finally coming. After the issue with Ginyu being in Goku's body was resolved, Goku's body was injured and taken to a healing tank, which allowed Goku's body to receive another massive boost in power. And while this is happening, the fight with Goku's allies against Frieza himself is reaching its climax as Frieza continues to escalate his power by showing off his various transformations. One thing I found fascinating about Frieza and Goku is that their transformations go kind of in reverse when it comes to ideology. With each subsequent new form, Goku gets stronger. And the same goes for Frieza, but with Frieza, the first three forms are forms that he developed to mask and control his true power, as opposed to Goku, who discovers new powers as he trains and unlocks higher forms. So after some time, just as Vegeta is on the brink of death, Goku appears. I absolutely love how fearless Goku is, literally glowing as a beacon of hope for the universe. This was the first time that Frieza and Goku would ever meet face to face, intertwining their destinies together forever. At one point, Frieza even tries to cheap shot Goku, and Goku, showing the speed and quickness that Frieza had never seen before, dodged and landed a blow on Frieza, like the alpha dog that he is, immediately telling Frieza and the audience that Goku was not playing around, and that unlike the others, he wasn't going to go down without dropping some hurting bombs on Frieza. With his dying words, Vegeta implores Goku to defeat Frieza, stating that Frieza must be killed at the hands of a Saiyan, karma for Frieza's genocide of the entire race. But Goku was different. Goku did not represent the sinful acts of his ancestors. Goku was his own man. At this point, Goku's not even worried about that kind of vengeance because he does not represent them. He wants to challenge Frieza to combat, to test his own body, and to protect his loved ones more than anything. After months and months of manga chapters and TV episodes building and building and building, these two irresistible forces were about to begin their legendary battle. One aspect that makes this fight interesting is that it didn't begin personal, but it would become very personal at one point. But we'll discuss that part of the fight later in this video. In fact, at one point, Frieza even tried to recruit Goku, possibly to take Vegeta's place at his side. Frieza's dislike of Goku's entire race aside, he knows that they are powerful, if a bit submissive to him, and he'll never allow his own ego to accept that someone is stronger than him. Remember that point for later in this video because, trust me, it's an important one and an important aspect of the conclusion of this fight. Both fighters begin very trepidatiously, testing each other's powers and abilities. Also, make sure you show me how powerful you are by pressing that like button right now because that's going to show me how strong you really are, and trust me, I really do appreciate it. So, the early part of this fight has some of my absolute favorite sequences in both the anime and the manga. Toriyama's use of paneling and angles is absolutely superb. On the anime side of things, Dragon Ball Z episodes 87 and 88 flourish with grand visual quality. Animators like Tomokichi Takeuchi and Naoki Tate attempt to bring Toriyama's vision to the screen with flair and intensity in episode 87. With episode 88, Studio Last House took the reins, featuring Naoto Shishida and Taichiro Ohara delivering the pizzazz. I used to love watching this part of the fight when I was a kid over and over again, and honestly, I still do. It excites me to put these episodes on and just enjoy. To me, these first two episodes are brilliant showcases of combat acumen, showing that Frieza is as cunning as he is strong and employs techniques in his arsenal that we've never seen before. Goku knew he was up against a Titan, but still was sharp enough to keep his trump cards to himself. Although Frieza has a deeply rooted disgust for every member of Goku's race, he had a subtle respect for him. He still felt Goku was nowhere near reaching him physically, but he respected him as a warrior, or at least it appeared this way. Toriyama uses Piccolo as an exposition character to tell the audience how terrifying these two are, being someone who has faced off against both of them in combat, and being a former rival, now supporter of Goku. After this early segment, things begin to slow down a bit. At this point, Frieza's strategy changes. He wants to break Goku mentally. He already thinks that physically Goku is no match for him, so he wants to humiliate the last of his kind, even more so than he did Vegeta. Frieza asks Goku whether he prefers an aerial or ground battle, and Goku states he'd rather fight on the ground. At this point, Frieza boasts that he can defeat Goku without using his hands. And for a while, Frieza is establishing dominance. But at one point, Frieza begins to use his tail. Goku bites it, and Frieza, without thinking, uses his hand to strike Goku. I feel like this moment is often overlooked by people because they don't really understand what Toriyama was doing here. Goku warns Frieza that he's overconfident, and because of his overconfidence, he leaves himself open to attack. He leaves himself open to getting hurt. Now, this is a key moment that you will need to remember because I'll be coming back to this later. Toriyama's use of foreshadowing here is amazing, and it's something I really didn't notice the first time I saw this. And obviously this fight is long, and the anime adaptation is full of a bunch of crap filler, like the Captain Ginyu switching bodies with Bulma stuff, so it's tough to connect the dots upon first viewing. Frieza's overconfidence is absolutely a major factor in his downfall. But for right now, Frieza begins to punish Goku. As the fight progresses, Frieza decides to raise his power to 50%. Kaio-sama reveals that Goku had been subversely using Kaioken at a 10 times multiplier, but Frieza was far too powerful for him. Goku realized that all the warnings about Frieza were indeed accurate. This was no ordinary enemy. This was a cold and calculating, overpowered assassin who was like an immovable object. After realizing that everyone from his past and present were counting on him, he gambles it all on a 20 times Kaioken, which was unthinkable at the time, and a Kamehameha, which Frieza manages to block with his hand, and while it does leave some light bruising on Frieza's palms and fingers, he is by no means really injured at all.
But it did hurt. He even says so himself.
Since that trump card failed, Goku goes to his other trump card, creating a Genki Dama. This time, a gigantic Genki Dama, unlike any of the ones on Earth. This time, Goku gathers energy from planet Namek as well as nearby planets to create a giant Super Ball of Triumph. It was during this time that Goku realized that he probably wasn't going to be able to beat Frieza in combat, and now it's about survival. It's about Goku trying to survive, but once again, rather than finishing Goku off, Frieza toys with him. Frieza realizes Goku has nothing left after the Kaioken, but he doesn't know about Goku's secret super technique. At one point, Gohan, Piccolo, and Kuririn get involved, realizing that Goku might be finished if they don't. They provide enough of a distraction for Goku to finish gathering energy and fire the Super Genki Dama upon Frieza. Frieza sees it, but it's too large for him to escape, and thus he tries to push it back with his hands. But even the mightiest in the universe is not strong enough to deflect this level of power. Frieza and the giant ball vanish into a gigantic crater on Namek as it appears like the Titan has fallen, but we as fans know that's not quite how it goes down. In the next section, we'll examine Goku's metamorphosis and his true acceptance of his heritage and what it meant for him as a man. as well as the tide will begin to shift in this battle.
So remember how I said when this fight began it wasn't personal? Yeah, that all changes now. Frieza legitimately almost died at the hands of Goku's Genki Dama. While Goku did hurt Frieza a bit with the Kaioken earlier in the fight, he didn't really know pain until this moment. Some would classify Goku's transformation as being a bit of a shocker, but it really isn't. It was built up pretty well from the time Goku landed on the planet and Vegeta shat his pants. It was mentioned earlier in the arc a few times in passing, but really, it began to take shape here. In fact, Vegeta really became the backstory character, that is to say, the one who would constantly remind you about this legend. Vegeta pleaded with Goku that Frieza must die at his hands. The anime adds even more to this with extra scenes. There's a scene in Dragon Ball Z episode 92 where Goku begins to hallucinate and sees visions of naked Vegeta talking to him, imploring him to defeat Frieza. This isn't in the manga, and honestly, it's not necessary because Goku doesn't really care. Goku has no memories of his father or his planet in the original story. Goku himself even understands that the genocide was a bit karmic because of all the innocent lives that the Saiyans have taken. However, when Goku transforms at last, this mentality changes a bit. But what led to it? Before Toriyama would introduce the concept of S-cells or tingly backs, the formula was simple. ET plus EA equals SSJ. So, extreme training plus extreme anger is the key. The survivors of the fight thought they were safe, but suddenly in DBZ episode 95, a battle-damaged Frieza emerges from near death. Now, the manga and anime versions of this are different, and if you've never read the original manga, some context of what Frieza was trying to do may have been lost on you. Frieza, angry at Son Goku, a mere monkey for almost ending his life, wants to make Goku suffer by killing his loved ones first, and save Goku for last, just so he can suffer at the pain of watching his son and his friends die in front of him. Frieza targets Piccolo first with a shot to the chest and KOs him. Now in the anime version, this was changed. Frieza aimed at Goku first and Piccolo stepped in to take the shot. I don't know why Toei Animation chose to change this, other than it being a misunderstanding of what Toriyama was writing at the time by the producers. At this point, if you're reading or watching for the first time, you'd think Piccolo is dead. He's not, but you'd think so. He aims at Kuririn next, Goku's best friend since childhood, lifts him into the air and makes him explode internally. His final words before exploding was a cry for help for his best friend. Frieza's next target would be Gohan, but it wouldn't get that far. The planet began to shake, Goku had enough and lost control of his body. This was the mighty transformation Frieza feared for decades, happening right in front of him. Did Frieza go too far? Absolutely. Knowing his son's life was at risk, Goku fulfills his destiny and becomes the great golden warrior, and Frieza craps his pants. For a while, the difference in power between Goku and Frieza was outstanding. Frieza had no chance as Goku pummels him. Dragon Ball Z episode 96 and 97 show this, but 96 is the key point where Goku finally accepts who he is and always has been. Frieza fires ki beams at Goku and can't connect. The same ones that worked on everybody. So Goku, just to taunt him, allows him to hit him. Goku deflects the blast with his jaw and smiles at him. Alpha. Then Goku remarks that Frieza can destroy entire planets, entire civilizations, but can't defeat one man. God, I love Dragon Ball. I love it. Up until this point, Goku didn't want to accept he was adopted by Earth. He didn't want to accept that he was from an alien race of killers. The Hope of the Universe speech in the dub completely ignores this, which is why so many fans hate it. This is an important moment. Goku finally refers to himself as the Saiyan who was raised on Earth. Super Saiyan Son Goku da! Frieza realizes that he just can't win. So being the vindictive piece of trash that he is, he decides he'll just survive and get his revenge by surviving. He does so by destroying Namek. This shows Frieza's complete psychosis at this point. He can't accept that he might not win. He can't accept that he's just not dominating this fight. So he wants to just wipe out the planet, ensuring that even if Goku beats him in a fight, he won't survive. This act of desperation should tell you a lot about how much of a complete slimeball Frieza is, and really how much of a coward he is. It wasn't about winning a fight as a competitor anymore. He wanted to hurt Goku to compensate for his bruised ego. Truly a wimp in many ways internally. At this point, the story is moved forward with the sequence of Kaio-sama and Kami-sama working together to make the wishes to bring everybody killed by Frieza and his minions back to life and to transport them all to Earth, leaving Goku and Frieza as the final challengers. But before then, Frieza decides to go all out against his threat and change his body to utilizing his 100% power. So we have a shirtless, determined Goku battling an overly buff and overly egotistical Frieza on a dying planet with volcanoes, ash, earthquakes, lava, storms, and everything else. Truly, this was Toriyama's absolute best backdrop for a battle in the entire series, and the anime version makes it seem epic and also gives it a sense of dread where we don't know what's going to happen or who's going to survive, especially if you have no context for what happens after. Two warriors destined to clash in a post-apocalyptic environment where only one winner will be declared. Depending on whether you are reading the manga or watching either Dragon Ball Z or Dragon Ball Kai versions, this fight is slightly different in all of them, but they all have their pros and cons. Ultimately, I find myself enjoying this fight even though it's not my favorite. What makes it special is the atmosphere, but Toriyama's telling us much more. Goku is the consummate martial artist, but a complete counterclockwise representation of his race. He's not a trained killer, but he was supposed to be. He loves combat, he loves competition, but he doesn't like to bully people or kill them for no reason because he sees potential in them to be greater. Goku naively thinks that others share this mentality when in fact, these villains don't. Frieza has some competitiveness to him, but if he can't win, he won't just let it go. He'll seek revenge. He'll seek vengeance. He'll seek a way to repair his own ego so as not to be faced with the fact that he lost the fight. As I said on the very first Dragon Ball in depth, Goku had a strategy. Goku's strategy was to deliver hard blows to the body. Blows to the body, especially very strong, hard ones, can hurt much more than being hit in the face, and the pain can last longer. Assuming that Frieza's body has similar anatomy to the rest of us, Goku knew this, and Goku struck hard with various shots. At one point, he delivers an incredible uppercut and Frieza begins to cough up blood. Goku causes internal bleeding. At this point, Frieza's 100% full power body begins to fall apart. So Goku realizes this. He knows that Frieza's done for and he shows mercy. Despite everything that Frieza did to him and his friends, he still has mercy. He still gives Frieza a chance to live and leave the planet. Goku's mercy is naive but honorable. Frieza's ego is still unwilling to accept that he lost to a filthy monkey, that he creates his energy cutters and attacks Goku, which leads to Goku getting back into the fight. I mentioned in the previous section just how petty and vindictive Frieza is, and he really shows it here. But he pays for it. Remember earlier when Goku was warning Frieza about being too cocky and not paying attention? Also, remember when we discovered that Frieza cannot sense ki at this time, including his very own? Well, one good slice deserves another as Frieza gets caught by his own technique and cut in half, solidifying the victory for Goku. Once again, history repeats itself. Goku sees Frieza is decisively beaten, but still has mercy on him. Still, Goku had not quite learned the lesson that not everyone should be left alive. Frieza, the ultimate coward and hypocrite, begs for mercy. Goku throws it in his face that many others begged to live, and Frieza, the sociopath, treated them like nothing and didn't even give them a chance to live. So as Goku prepares to leave the dying planet, Frieza again uses that last bit of ki that Goku gave him, giving in to his own ego, and Goku fires back and puts an end to him, at least for a little while. This fight was destiny in the making. Of course, the fight was about Goku understanding his race and coming to terms with who they were and who he is, and even though he fulfilled the legend and adopted their power, his fundamental way of life is quite opposite of theirs. He's not a bully. He fights to compete and to better himself and others around him. Now with his deadliest enemy vanquished, Goku's next foe after this would be one much smaller than Frieza, that is that of a heart virus that would strike him a few years later. Frieza was Goku's ultimate enemy, the one responsible for killing his father and his entire race, among others. Because Goku was sent to Earth, Frieza would be the in-universe reason as to why we have this huge story called Dragon Ball. Because no matter what version of Bardock's story you prefer, Frieza was the catalyst for Goku being sent to Earth and never having been retrieved. Goku was meant to destroy the planet to prepare it for a sale and eventually get reunited with his people. This wouldn't happen because Frieza killed them, leaving Goku to be raised on Earth and become the martial artist he became, which is what led to him having so much power and potential. Frieza basically made his own worst enemy, without realizing it. When I was younger, I always theorized that Goku vs. Frieza was symbolic of a battle between the white slave owner and the black slave, with Frieza being the abusive and very racist dictator and Goku being the rebel. The RZA of the Wu-Tang Clan once stated this as well. Toriyama himself has never gone on record to confirm or deny this, but trust me, he knows his history. Goku is the one that got away, was raised right, and came back with great anger and furious vengeance, ultimately avenging his entire race with his victory, but he didn't do it for them. He did it for his own best friend getting murdered and for himself. Which is why he told everybody to get off the planet, not just to finish off Frieza because it was the right thing to do, but to really test himself against Frieza's incredible might. Don't forget that earlier in the arc, Kaio-sama warned Goku to stay away from Frieza. You think that's gonna work? That's gonna make him want to fight Frieza even more. He had to prove it to himself that he could beat him. Goku vs. Frieza is, to date, one of the longest fights in anime history, with the DBZ version being 19 episodes. It is considered one of the most iconic fights in all of anime worldwide. While it was airing on Toonami here in the West, it created an influx of new fans thanks to this legendary and long build-up and payoff. It's not my personal favorite fight in the series, but it is one that is highly regarded and highly respected. The anime version is far too long, but the Kai and manga versions are easier to digest. But I still prefer the Z version because of the music and the amazing voice acting in the Japanese dub. However, the Kai version has a tremendous performance, especially in the English dub, from Chris Ayres and Sean Schemmel. What hurts the Dragon Ball Z version is mostly all of the filler parts where Goku's just standing there with his arms up, and the Bulma filler with Captain Ginyu and the frog. That stuff is just kind of pointless, but the fight itself I thought was fine. With this fight, Everything changed for Dragon Ball as the series became primarily focused on transformations, and combat went from strategic martial arts chess matches to huge battles across the landscapes. The series was already headed in this direction beginning around the Piccolo arc, but now it would be cemented so. Goku vs. Frieza was one of the most popular times during the original manga's run in Japan and is beloved all over the world, and I hope after you've seen this video you'll appreciate it more the next time you revisit it. It was a clash of destiny, a clash of ideologies, a clash of warriors, Goku and Frieza.